What's up, everybody? DC here, and I'm about to do my very first deck tech, finally. We talked about it a little bit on Harambe's Bauble podcast, how I wanted to do a deck tech, and I considered doing one for Gwen and Brea and spiders, and I may do more of these in the future. Depends on how well this does, but I ended up going with Gwen. This deck list is on Moxfield. I have it down in the comments below. And kind of I just wanted to go through the deck itself and talk about the decisions I made on why that I play what I play and kind of like the winners and how the stuff interacts. It won't take too long, I promise. But yeah, my deck is centered around Gwen Stacy. That's my commander. So she's Jeskai colors. In case you don't know what Gwen does, I'll go ahead and read it. She has two sides. The front side is a colorless and a red. When Gwen Stacy enters, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as you control this creature. Yeah, so pretty cool that you get to play a card, as you control her from exile, because her backside, see if I could figure out how to flip this. Oh, there we go. Is Ghost Spider. Flying, Vigilance, Haste, a 4/4. The Jeskai colors in 2 anything. Whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, put a 1/1 counter on Ghost Spider. You can remove 2 counters from Ghost Spider, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So obviously the theme of this deck is playing stuff from exile and buffing Gwen, and also, buffing Ghost Spider rather, and playing a bunch of interactions to where a bunch of stuff triggers off of exile, playing stuff from exile. So exile triggers is the name of this game. I named this deck Gwenning. She's won a couple times already, which is pretty neat. But yeah, really love Gwen. I love this deck. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely, I have it in Mana Box and it says it's a bracket 1. To me, it probably plays more like a bracket 2. It's a little more refined than just a hodgepodge of cards. Like, it clearly has a good theme and has some winning conditions for sure. So, I play one commander, obviously, but 4 planeswalkers. We'll just go through by type here and kind of talk about whether it's like a winning piece or not. So, Chandra, Torch of Defiance. This one, honestly, I just wanted to play a Chandra card in here. I could probably cut this and be fine, but adding red mana to your mana pool is pretty neat. Also, the +1, exile the top card of your library. You may cast this card. If you don't, Chandra, Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. So you could either add mana to cast stuff you already have in exile, or you could put something in exile to get triggers. So I think it's worth it for 4 mana. I don't really care about her -3 or -7 ability. Although I guess if you do go ultimate, it's pretty neat because you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target. I mean, if you can go ultimate with her, that's not bad. Next, I actually previewed this, or not previewed, I talked about this in our deck tech section of the last pod we recorded. Jace Reawaken. This card ended up playing a lot better than I thought. I really just wanted to play a Jace card because I love Jace. It's got the Spider-Man 2099 thing. You can't cast a spell during your first, second, or third turns of the game. Draw a card, then discard a card. That's pretty good for +1. But really, what you're playing it for is this. You may exile not only a card with mana value 3 or less from your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. So plotted means you could play it for free next turn. This is obviously what I'm playing Jace for, is that +1 ability, the middle +1 ability for more exile triggers, and man, being able to play it for free the next turn, so good. And then this one kind of busted in this deck. If this card's not taken care of, I kind of can run away with a game. This is definitely a game winner. Quintorius Canned. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, Quintorius Canned deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. That's a great static ability for 5 mana. Its +1 is create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Really good for blockers to help defend Quintorius Canned if I don't have anything on the field. But also, you know, you want to build him up so you can do his -3 here, which is Discover 4. So look at the top 4 cards of your library. You could reveal, you know, a non-land card and all that. So discovering's good. Discovering's really good. I want to do that as much as I can because you're technically playing from exile when you discover. So that's for triggers as well. Yeah, this game, this is a win condition. Quintorius Canned is a win condition because of that static ability right there, dealing static 2 damage and gaining 2 life. Really, really good. And then as a, not really like a piece to win or anything like that, but just giving me some extra protection. I'm playing Jeskai. Why not play Teferi Time Raveler? You know, given whenever you want to do a big turn where you're doing a bunch of stuff from exile and you don't want to be interrupted doing so, there's no infinite combos in this. There's not even really combos. Really, it's just kind of playing a bunch. You're trying to play as many spells from exile as possible. It's the whole theme of the deck. But Teferi is just good protection for you. You all know what Teferi does. I don't want to read all that. Mostly the big thing is each opponent can't cast spells. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So yeah, giving you some protection on your turn. All right, so that's Planeswalkers. I got 4 of them in there. Chandra probably doesn't have to be in there. Really, Teferi doesn't either. These 2, Jace Reawakened and Quintorius Canned, definitely the 2 you want to try to put in there if you can. All right, now let's get to creatures. I won't. I mean, there's 22 creatures. I won't really go into detail on a lot of these unless it's a winning piece. I'll just kind of quickly go through them. So Aranya. This actually can be a winning piece, so I'll talk about her. Aranya, Heart of the Spider. Whenever you attack, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature. So really good for Gwen to combo with her because of her ability where you can remove counters from her to put stuff on exile, or play stuff from exile. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So that's a good trigger too, because Gwen's probably going to be modified and probably going to have other modified stuff. So this is an important piece to try to get out if you can. This is Kate Sith is just kind of another way to put stuff into exile and play it, and you can scry, which is nice, and it does it at the beginning of your combat, so that's good. I actually haven't even got to play this card yet. I accidentally. So one thing I will say about this deck is sometimes you're just going to exile stuff from the top of your library and not be able to play it, and that kind of sucks. But at the same time, at least you're making choices on what you want to play and what you know what's better to play. Electro, unfortunately, the only time I've seen him in the few games I've played with this deck, he has he was put into exile by myself and can't play him yet. But I'm putting this in here because of the you're not losing red mana as steps and phases end. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, add a red. Whenever it leaves the battlefield, you may pay X. When you do, he deals X damage to target player. So this is obviously a win condition by itself because of, honestly, all of his abilities. But mostly the fact that I can stack red mana, and mostly this deck runs a bunch of red spells. Yeah, and being able to add more red whenever I'm casting an instant or sorcery, which there's plenty of. Just a really overall good card for red, but it really helps out in this deck. I assume. I assume it will help out. I haven't got to play with him yet. I always draw Aruth. Aruth. I don't know how you pronounce it. Tormented Prophet. Yeah, if you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn. This is pretty important because, again, you can make a choice. Sometimes you get to play both cards, especially if it's a land, right? And playing lands from exile also triggers all the exile trigger abilities in this deck, or at least most of them. So yeah, this one, very useful utility piece. This is a game winner for sure. Everybody knows what Atali does, I think. Primal Storm. This is definitely a game winner. This is one you're going to want to try to play, and you're going to get a lot of triggers when you do. and hopefully you have a way to give it haste or something so it doesn't get removed immediately the next turn. Um, really, really love this card. I have it in a few decks. Being able to steal cards from your opponent, really cool. And it puts them in exile, so you're playing them from exile. Exactly what this deck wants to do. Here's another card I haven't got to play with yet, so I don't actually know how good it is. But yeah, playing stuff from exile, you get to foretell stuff with this. Obviously, what it wants to do. Here's another win condition: Flaming Tyrannosaurus. There's a few Doctor Who cards in here. Doctor Who, Doctor Who cards in here. Really pair well with Gwen, but Flaming Tyrannosaurus is kind of broken for this deck. 7 mana, yeah, it's a lot, but who cares? It's Commander. Menace, Paradox. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, a Flaming Tyrannosaurus deals 3 damage to any target. Then put a 1/1 counter on Flaming Tyrannosaurus. Love that. Free Lightning Bolt every time you play something from exile, and it gets 1/1 counters. Whenever Flaming Tyrannosaurus dies, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So, yeah, this card, definitely a winner. Definitely a winning condition. Grinzo is just a good utility card for triggers. Same with, well, this is, Inti's good. Inti, because whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature against trample till in the turn. So yeah, like with Aranya, you can modify this, right? And as a matter of fact, let's get Gwen back on the screen here. What are we doing? I guess it's just not going to cycle that card. Whatever. Yeah, so good for modifying. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this until your next step. So yeah, triggers. Gives exile triggers again. Gives modifications. Allows you to pilfer a little bit through your deck. Very useful card. This, I won't say it's a winning condition. It's another Doctor Who card, but definitely a threat because of all the robots that it makes. Or, I'm sorry, not robots. Alien warrior creature tokens. Battlecry, whatever. Trample, whatever. I don't really care about that. What I care about is the fact that it makes 2/2s. And it's going to make a lot of them. So, not a winning condition, but just very useful for 4 mana. This card I've considered taking out because it's kind of clunky for a 3/3. But again, it modifies my stuff, which is good. And when it plays into that modification. So it's kind of a twofold. This deck is a modification deck and a play from exile deck. So those are you kind of want to have 2 themes if you're trying to win. Typically, in my experience, you want to have 2 ways to win and not just rely on one strategy. So mine is modifying and playing from exile in this deck. So Communist Celebrations, it does what it needs to do, but kind of clunky for a 3/3. Lelia's good. Lelia, I don't know how you pronounce it. The Blade Reforged. So again, it's allowing you to play stuff from exile from the top of your library, and then more modifications to her. So whenever you exile 1 or more cards from your library and or graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on Lelia. This card can get pretty big pretty quick. Not a winning condition, but definitely helps put pressure on and allows you to play stuff from the top of your library from exile. Party Thrasher, another good utility card on a body. Really, the top part of this is what I love about it. Non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke. That's really awesome, especially when I'm making aliens with Araxa. Yeah, it also has this second ability at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. You may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So yeah, you might lose a card. This deck will do that. You're going to lose some cards, but I really like the top ability about giving your spells Convoke from exile, the non-creature spells at least. So good utility for that. PNLR, just good for making dudes, kind of like Araxa, but much cheaper, and 1/1 Thopters. Just good utility card, making dudes. Gotta have blockers. Plarg and Nasari, I don't know. I actually I haven't got to use this yet either, so I don't know how good it plays, but the idea is, it exiles cards from the top of your library. I'm sorry. Let me just read the card. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player, again, really cool interaction with the players' cards. I love that. Each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. So, potentially a game ender, depending on what you get. This card's really powerful. The fact that it's an upkeep trigger kind of sucks because you got to wait, and this is probably going to get killed between then and your next turn. But if you can figure out a way to give it hexproof or shroud or protection in some way, then this card can definitely end the game because you're just still in playing free cards every turn, stealing cards from your opponent and playing them for free. Gotta love that. It's a utility card as well. Gives you treasure tokens, and you can sacrifice treasure tokens to exile and play from the top of your exile cards and play them from the top of your library. Actually, it's funny because I've dealt a lot of damage with this card just because of the menace portion. It's just funny how that happens sometimes. Rose Cutthroat Raider. This card's interesting. This would be a card you could probably replace, but it's been useful at times. It's 4 mana, 3/2. That's first strike though, at least. Raid. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you attack this turn, create a junk token for each opponent you attacked. That is an artifact with sacrifice this artifact. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So obviously you're doing it for the junk tokens. But I do like that there's some interaction here. Whenever you sacrifice a junk, add red mana. Not losing that if you have Electro on the board. Yeah, there's some good use for this card. Speaking of Spider-Man 2099, I just talked about him earlier about, not being able to play him. This card really comes in handy. The double striking vigilance, don't really care that much about that, but what I care about here is this bottom ability. Think of your instep. If you've played a land or cast a spell this turn from anywhere other than your hand, Spider-Man 2099 deals damage equal to his power to any target. So yeah, when you're trying to modify stuff, if you want to modify Spider-Man 2099, that's great because you can just deal tons of damage to something at the end of your turn. Pretty powerful, especially because it does have double striking vigilance. So if you make him really big, then you can get the attack triggers. Yeah, this card fits really well. This one I kind of shoehorned in just because I wanted to play him, but actually I played him for the first time last time I played this deck. Really useful, especially because I run so many red spells in this deck. It's Tanook, Steadfast Second. We've talked about this on the pod. Other creatures you could try have haste. That's cool, I guess. I mean, it can be good. Artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp 2 and a red. So yeah, you're definitely warp here. Being able to warp your artifacts, which again, not really doing a lot of that, but my red spells, yeah, being able to warp those, really, really good. Great piece to this deck. Great way to play cards from exile. This card's also kind of weird, but it's come in handy, so I'm going to keep it. And I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm going to try my best. Uranger Auguralt. Uringer Augerelt. It's from one of the Final Fantasy starter decks. Really gaining life here is cool for sure. Whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, you gain 2 life. But what I've done with him that's been really useful is this tap ability here. Look at the top card of your library. You may exile it face down. And then the second ability, until end of turn, you may play cards exiled with Uringer Augerelt. Spells you cast this way cost 2 less to cast. So though that's really cool. It's kind of slow, but it's definitely useful, especially when you want to do multiples a turn, and you can reduce the cost. So good utility card for 2 mana. Vega the Watcher, card draw. Gotta have card draw. Great for this deck. Perfect for this deck. I talked about this card on the pod before. This card is busted in this deck, honestly. Wild Magic Sorcerer. This is one of the more expensive cards price-wise that I run in this deck. And it's just because it was only printed a couple times. Yeah, so it's an Orc Shaman. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. So the great thing about this card is, you know, you're already getting an exile trigger from just playing a card from exile. Well, you're also going to cascade it and get an additional trigger for playing something from exile, because whenever you play something from a cascade, it is from exile. So this card is so great in this deck. If you could somehow get this out, like, this is a game winner, because if you can keep it on the field, this will win you games. So good. All right, so we're out of creatures now. We're into the sorceries. I run 12 sorceries. Nice little balance between sorceries and instants. Obviously, I'd like to play more instants than sorceries, but these sorceries are all really good. We'll start with Doomscar. You play it for the Foretell. It's just a board wipe. What's not to love? You can play it, obviously, for a trigger cost if you're in a pinch, but if you play it and get some triggers before you destroy all creatures, that's great. Expressive Iteration. Amazing card for this deck. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. Put one of them on the bottom of your library and exile one of them. You may play the exile card this turn. So not only do you get to draw a card, you get to scry and put one at the bottom, and you get to put something in exile to play. Really great card. Perfect for this deck. Exactly the kind of card you're looking for. Some card draw. Farewell, just for the utility. No special triggers there. Just gotta have big board wipes, and Farewell's the best in the biz. Heroes Hangout. I like these cards that have multiples, because if you cascade into them or you're exiling them, but especially if you cascade into them, if it's like a counter spell or something, it would suck because you got nothing to counter. You're just casting it, and yep, you're wasting a card. Yeah, sure, you'll get the trigger, but I love this because it gives you 2 options. Choose one. You exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. That's really what you're playing that for. But, I mean, it has this utility too. 1 or 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and gain first strike in a turn. So, yeah, really, this card is not good, but it's really good for this deck. Yeah, Inspired Tinker is just really good. 5 mana is expensive, but the fact that you create 3 treasure tokens to kind of replace, 3 of those colorless, 3 out of the 5 mana to cast it, good. Exile the top 3 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. I love cards that give me the ability to play until the end of my next turn from exile, because sometimes you get in tricky situations where you're exiling something and you may not have enough gas to play everything you want to play in that single turn. So having the option to push that to next turn, love that. Love creating the treasure tokens. There's some treasure token interaction with the professional or the face breaker guy. It's good stuff. Inspired Tinkering is really good. This is great. This card is really amazing in this deck. Say you pair this with Wild Magic Sorcerer, and it's the first you know, card you're playing that turn when you're cascading. So it just has Cascade for 5, which is good for 5 because there's a lot of 4, 3, and 2 and 1 cost cards in this deck. Not only will you get that Cascade trigger, but because you're playing that card from exile, it will then trigger the Wild Magic Sorcerer Cascade. So you kind of find yourself in these situations where you're playing multiple cards for free in a turn, and man, it can snowball pretty fast in your favor. But the great thing about this card is, too, it has Rebound. So, yeah. Get multiple triggers there, potentially, with Wild Magic Sorcerer. Because you put this in exile, that triggers, right? And then you get to Cascade and Cascade again. So, good stuff. This card's good. Light up the stage. This is, for all intents and purposes, card draw. And being able to play stuff from exile is great. The spectacle cost is even better. Ponder, just for the utility. If I do happen to cascade into Ponder, not mad about it. I get the trigger, and I get to draw a card and fix the top of my library a little bit. Raven Form, another Foretold card. On its own, not good, but in this deck, it works out perfect because you're playing from exile with Foretell. Reckless Impulse, card draw, nothing else special to say there. Ren's Resolve is the exact same card, just a different name as Reckless Impulse. Yeah, they both exile the top 2 cards of the library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Exact same card, exact same cost, just different names. And both very useful in this deck. Gotta have card draw. Zenith Festival's pretty good. This is also one that not necessarily need. I found it in this is, if I get a better card, this could be a cut candidate, but I do, like I said, I talked about before, I like the fact that it lets you play it to the end of your next turn. I think that's good. And it has Harmonize, so good that you can play it from the graveyard. All right, so we are getting into instants now. So I have 11 instants. We're almost there, folks. I won't go over the lands because you can play whatever lands you want. There's only a couple I'm going to mention that are utility that are really good for this deck. We'll quickly go through instants. Amazing Acrobatics. I talked about it earlier, having 2 choices. So being able to tap or counter target spell, really good for this deck. Borrow's Charm, love the utility. Brainstorm. Again, just being able to fix the top of your library, very good. Cosmic Intervention has saved my butt so many times. Foretelling it's amazing, but its ability, this is such good protection, especially in this deck. Yeah, so if a permanent you control would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile it instead. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So good in this deck. I think this card's just good anyway, but very good in this deck. Another potential board wiper for a Foretell. Pretty decent. Generous Gift. Everybody knows Generous Gift. If you're in white, you pretty much have to run this. Path to Exile. Same deal. If you're in white, you pretty much have to run this. Saw It Coming. Again, perfect counterspell for this deck because you're foretelling it. You could cast it on its own for 3 mana if you really want, just as a cancel. But being able to get a trigger for exile, and it's just so good. Stroke of Midnight. Really, this should be Swords of Plowshare, but I just didn't have an extra. Well, maybe I did put swords in here. Yeah, I'm not sure if I put swords in here or not. But Stroke of Midnight is just good utility. The fact that it's a non-land permanent you can destroy. Also has saved my butt so many times. Big threats being taken care of. Surge of Brilliance. This is a fun card in this deck. within your turn, if you play this, like draw a card for each spell you've cast this turn from anywhere other than your hand. It's gonna be really, really good card draw, especially because you can foretell it, which is even better. So this is perfect instant for this deck. Yeah, this is just some good protection for you, and you can play it from exile with foretell. Mana Rock, not going into detail on Arcane Signet or Chromatic Lantern or Felwar Stone. Yeah, really, I should have swords in this deck instead of that Stroke of Midnight. I just don't have a copy right now. I'll have to get another copy. This card is pretty good for this deck. When this artifact enters, exile the top 2 cards of your library. So it's interdimensional web watch. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Again, I love being able to have the option to play until the end of my next turn. And you can just tap and add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast spells from exile. Well, this is a great rock for this deck because I pretty much exclusively cast spells from exile. So being able to add 2 mana, very, 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 very good. Greaves, got to get protection. Soul Ring, goaded. Swiftfoot, again, protection for your stuff. Sword and Forger Frontier, this is saving my butt mostly for the protection because there's so many decks out there that run green. But also good is whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to the player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. Just a great card. Amazing card. Talismans, I run the talismans. All 3 for my colors because ramp, go burr. I do have a few enchantments here. So I had 11 artifacts. I have only 6 enchantments. I did have more before, but they didn't really perform like I wanted to. This card's pretty cool. You know, one of the room cards from Duskmorn, Charred Foyer. So that's the left side, the smaller side, the 4 mana side. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So love that. Free exile trigger. And then for Warped Space, the second side, the 6 mana side, the unlock side. You can unlock either side, but once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. That ability is so good for this deck. This is a key piece to, if you can get this out on the battlefield. Most of these enchantments, if you can get them out on the battlefield with any other combination, you're going to make your opponent sweat. And that's definitely one. Mind's Dilation is low-key the best card for this deck in this deck. It is 7 mana, but who cares? It's Commander. Whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of their library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Just being able to cast stuff on their turn. And it's each turn. So like, say someone casts something to kill someone else's thing, I'll get a trigger for that. Man, this card busted. Definitely a winner, game breaker. Shadow the Goblin I've also considered taking out, but if you can get down to 0 cards in hand, which is actually kind of easy to do in this deck, this turns out to be pretty good. At the beginning of your first main phase, discard a card if you do draw a card. Well, if you don't have a card to discard, then you don't draw a card, which kind of sucks, but being able to filter through your deck again, that can be useful. But this ability down here at the bottom, whenever you play a card, whenever you play a land or cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, this enchantment deals 1 damage to each opponent. That 1 damage doesn't seem like a lot, but stacking it with whatever else you're doing and the potential to draw cards with it, it might be a cut candidate in the future, but it's got its utilities for 2 mana for sure. Spider-Verse, kind of busted as well. Like I said, most of these enchantments are just busted. The legend rule doesn't apply to spiders you control, so if I'm copying Gwen, that's the idea. Which I did last time I played in one, and it was pretty bonkers. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may copy it. If you do, you may choose new targets for the copy. If the copy is a permanent spell, it gains haste. Do this only once each turn. So yeah, play Gwen from the command zone, copier. Yeah, so good. This is also pretty good. The loss in this isn't a winner, but definitely, I like putting dudes out there for blockers, some protection. This card's pretty fun. The Lost in the Dam, it's from the Warhammer set. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control from anywhere other than your hand, or you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. Yep. When I'm playing a bunch of stuff from Exile, it's a lot of triggers. Triple Triad, I love this card. It's not great, but I still love it. It's 6 mana, 3 red, which is, I admit, a lot, but this is coming the clutch for me. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles a top card of their library. Until end of turn, you may play the card you own exiled this way, and each other card exiled this way with lesser mana value than it without paying their mana costs. Yeah, I love stealing people's stuff from the top of their deck, getting exile triggers. This card, it's chunky. It's a beefy boy, but I do like it. It's a lot of fun to play with. And then, okay, so that's the deck. I told you about the interactions between some of the cards. What your game winners are. Most of your game winners are obviously Gwen. Gwen's a game winner. Quintorius Can's a game winner. Jace Reawakened, while not a game winner, will help accelerate your game. Itali's your game winner. Flaming Tyrannosaurus is a game winner. Honestly, Lelia can be a game winner. Plarg and Nasari, game winner. Spider-Man 2099, game winner. And Wild Magic Sorcerer, game winner. So you have a lot of cards that if you can get them to stick, they can win you the game by playing all these cards from Exile. And the enchantments are all like super important and can win you the game as well. Lands only run 33 because I've got so many rocks. Honestly, I've never felt strapped for mana with playing 33. I realize it seems a bit low, but trust me, it doesn't feel like it when I'm playing it. The ones I want to mention for the utility, though, are Quarry Mountain Monastery. So it enters the battlefield tapped, unless you control a plains or an island. What we care about is this bottom ability, pay 3 and a mountain. Tap it, exile a top card of your library until end of your next turn. You may play that card. So amazing late game, and sometimes even like mid game. Again, getting to play it until the end of your next turn, so clutch. Very important. And then there's another one, Hidden Courtyard. Again, for the utility, the bottom one here, you get to discover, but you do have to sacrifice it. But you're probably doing this late game, so it does enter tapped, so it's kind of slow, but I think it's worth it for that bottom ability for late game. Yeah, so you could pretty much play, you could obviously play fetch lands here. I don't, because I'm poor and I don't want to spend that kind of money. But my version of this deck comes into what they're saying for Card Kingdom at $243. I did have a lot of these cards in my collection already. I did order a few, but I think it's worth it for the bracket 1 or 2 that it is. Yeah, I'm running 55% red, so it's mostly a red deck with a splash of blue and white. Yeah, I think it's a really fun, underappreciated mechanic, playing stuff from Exile. I've had so much fun with this deck. If you just like the potential of combos and stacking triggers and having really busy turns, then this deck is probably for you. If you're a Gwen Stacy fan, like I am, this deck is for you. Yeah, let me know if you want to build it. If you have any suggestions of stuff I could do to it and make it better, I'd love the suggestions. I think it's really good for what it is. It plays really good for what it is. I think it can compete in bracket 3 as well. Bracket 4, obviously not. But yeah, Mana Box says it's a bracket 1, plays more like a bracket 2 in my opinion, and you could compete in bracket 3 for just around $240 if you don't have any of these cards on hand. So yeah, love this deck. Suggest you give it a shot. The deck list will be in the description below on Moxfield. And yeah, let me know what I can do to it to make it better, or if you think it's just a terrible idea. I'd love to hear from you either way. All right, I'll see you guys next time.